Junpei was suddenly very aware of the 5 pairs of eyes on him. He had their undivided attention now. The room had grown very, very quiet. Junpei took a deep breath. That's ridiculous. What possible evidence do you? I have 3 pieces of evidence. First, think back to a few hours ago. You made us argue over the 3 doors here in the big hospital room. There was no way all 7 people could go through them. Lotus suggested that we sacrifice one of us. Lotus looked away awkwardly. Junpei glanced at her and continued. Then you, Ace, said, I'll stay here. Why would you say something like that? It's pretty simple, really. You didn't want us to see the dead body in the shower room. You see, if Ace stayed behind, there were only 2 doors the rest of us could go through. Door 7 and 8. There was no way we could get through door 3, the shower room. You knew that, didn't you, Ace? That's why you volunteered to stay behind. Come on now. I think that's going a bit too far. I can understand if you're jealous of my bravery, but please, don't devalue my actions. I only wanted to save the rest of you. Surely you can understand my altruism. Altruism, huh? Junpei stared off into the darkness at something very interesting, and lazily began to dig a persistent bit of wax out of his ear. You already knew, didn't you? You knew that whichever doors we took, eventually we'd end up back in the big hospital room. What on earth are you saying? Of course I didn't know that. How could I have? Really? Yes. Yes. Bleeding was not something they'd heard from Ace before. Junpei pulled the piece of wax from his ear, glanced at it, and flicked it off into the darkness. Well, that's cool. I still got 2 more pieces of evidence that say you're the killer. The second is that, as I mentioned earlier, you have prosopagnosia. Then you mean to imply that a person who can't distinguish human faces must be a bad person? Junpei, they call that prejudice. No, I'm not that stupid. Then why? Well, before I explain, I suppose there's something I should tell you. That corpse in the shower room, it's not Snake's. What? His face went pale. The others looked confused as well, if the body wasn't Snake's. I didn't put it together right away, but there was something Clover told me. She said that Snake's left arm was prosthetic. He'd lost his real arm in an accident. But the body we saw in the shower room, let's call him Guy X. Guy X's left arm was definitely flesh and blood. In other words, Guy X couldn't possibly have been Snake. Oh god. No, that's impossible. He started muttering deliriously to himself, shaking his head back and forth. Junpei was long past caring. Let's say, hypothetically, that the killer didn't have prosopagnosia. If that were the case, he would immediately realize that Guy X wasn't Snake. Even if the clothes were the same as Snake's, their faces would be completely different. It would have been obvious that they were different people. And yet, they still killed him. Why? Why would they kill a stranger who'd only just shown up? On the other hand, if the killer did have prosopagnosia, it makes sense. We thought Guy X was Snake and killed him. Wait just a moment. Let's say you're right and I mistook Guy X for Snake. Even if I did, I would have no motive to kill him. Why would I want to kill Snake? I can think of at least 2 motives. 1, Snake knew about your past. If he ever revealed what he knew, that would have been really bad for you. You really didn't want that to happen. So, to make sure Snake's mouth stayed shut, you killed him. 2. Snake had a grudge against you. You knew that, or at least you could have easily assumed he did. Even without exposing your identity, he was a threat to you. You never knew when you might be attacked. You couldn't ever let your guard down. Every moment was a moment he might try something. You didn't want that kind of danger hanging over you, so you... Hey, Hold on a minute. For the first time since the beginning of Junpei's explanation, someone besides Ace spoke. What's a past that Ace wouldn't want us to know? Why did Snake have such a grudge against him? Look at this. He handed Santa a small piece of paper. Santa squinted at the paper and began to read. The notary game was played once before, 9 years ago. The person with the number 2 bracelet attended the game 9 years ago. It was planned by the following 4 people. Cradle Pharmaceutical CEO Gentaro Hongo. What is this? Slowly, Santa looked up from the paper. His eyes met Junpei's. It's the message from Zero. It was in the safe in the first-class cabin. Then suddenly, give me a break. Ace's face was red and shaking, and his voice was full of fury tinged with desperation. That paper is a lie. Someone is trying to frame me. Me? You said me, right? Junpei's eyes narrowed and the trap began to close. Ace inhaled sharply. His eyes flicked off to Junpei to something. Anything else. Wouldn't that mean that you're admitting you were Hongo, the CEO of Cradle Pharmaceutical? Or am I mistaken? It was as though a switch had been flipped. The color drained from Ace's face, and as he realized what he'd done, his eyes went wide. Very well. I admit that much. I am certainly the CEO of Cradle Pharmaceutical, Gentaro Hongo. So what if I am? I don't know anything about this notary game that supposedly took place 9 years ago. Everything on that scrap of paper is bullshit. Someone is trying to set me up, you see. First of all, he stammered as he tried desperately to work himself to a more tenable position. Junpei, you're claiming I did all this by myself. Think that over, alright? How could I have killed Snake all by myself? Not Snake. It was Guy X. I don't care who it was. You said the killer put this other man into door 3, right? Yeah, maybe. And I couldn't have possibly done that alone. I couldn't have opened door 3 with only myself and Guy X. Nope, you could have. Huh? Huh? What? Ace's face was tight, and his teeth were clenched. Junpei fixed him with a level stare. The trap was about to close. Actually, Ace. When you were unconscious, I took something from you. Remember when you were injected with that anesthetic and fell asleep in the big hospital? So here. Yeah, back then, I took this. Junpei put his hand into his pocket. No, you couldn't have. Ace's right hand moved. Junpei smiled. I got you, Ace. Your right hand there tells me all I needed to know. You want to tell me what you were so worried about? What's in your pocket? It's the number 9 bracelet, isn't it? Ah. Ace, Guy X, and the 9th man's bracelet. That was all you needed to open door 3. That's how you killed Guy X all by yourself, Ace. All you needed was the number 9 bracelet in your chest pocket. Ace lowered his hand from where it had stopped, halfway to his pocket. He looked down at the floor, his face hidden from Junpei. All he could see was the corner of Ace's mouth, twitching like a dying fish. If you want to play innocent, that's fine by me. Go ahead. Tell me I don't have the bracelet, if that's what you want to do. But if you could take off your coat and hand it to me, I'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, we'll have to take it from you by force. Right, Seven? Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. Seven cracked his knuckles with a sound like gunfire. Ace roared with laughter. He threw his arms wide and his head back and laughed, filling the room with a sound that scarcely belonged there. Then stopped. His arms came down, his head dropped to look straight ahead at Junpei. Oh dang. Gold! This guy's crazy. His face was flat and cold, devoid of any emotion. Well done, Junpei. As you so correctly deduced, I have the number 9 bracelet. I retrieved it while we were searching for the missing hardware for the red. I left the room I was supposed to search and headed to the first-class cabin on B deck. His voice showed no emotion, no sense of remorse or interest. It was almost bored, as though he were reciting an especially dull corporate letter. My purpose was to obtain the number 9 bracelet. 9 is a potent ally in the notary game. Adding 9 to any set of numbers won't alter the digital root. As you can see, 9 is a very useful number here. With it, one can go anywhere with anyone. So I made for the first-class cabin to obtain it. Ace successfully acquired the number 9 bracelet. He also found an unexpected bonus. The knife the 9th man had been holding. Aww. He killed Clover too. He slipped both of them into his chest pocket and left, as quickly as he'd come. He walked down the stairs and headed back to where he was supposed to be. That was when he met Guy X and mistook him for Snake. Snake was on his way to the large hospital room, but had not noticed Ace behind him. Ace made sure it stayed that way. Then who did he kill? Who did he kill? Oh my god. He followed the man wearing Snake's clothes to door 3. When the man stopped, he walked up behind him, quietly, and called out, Snake. The man turned to look at Ace. He said nothing, no words came out of his half-open mouth. He seemed dazed, somehow, almost like a man half asleep. Perhaps he had been drugged. It didn't matter to Ace. Ace was certain the man was Snake. He knew Snake had been a part of the notary game 9 years before. Snake hadn't recognized Ace immediately, but he was blind. That much made sense. Why then, hadn't Snake said anything to him? Surely he hadn't forgotten what had happened to him in the notary game, but not once he had attempted to confront Ace. Perhaps his lack of sight had prevented him from recognizing Ace, or perhaps Snake had conspired with Zero to deceive Ace. In either event, he was a threat, and it was better to deal with him sooner rather than later. Ace's mind was made up. He moved. He held the number 9 bracelet with a red. He waved his own bracelet in front of the red and finally grabbed Snake's arm and shoved his hand against the scanner panel. The door opened. Ace threw the man in through it. 9 seconds later, the door shut. 81 seconds passed. The man inside the door passed away. After that, I returned to my post as though nothing had happened. After conducting my own search, I returned to the large hospital room when the 1 a.m. bell rang. Ace's eyes were cold, and his cheeks were hollow and pallid. When he spoke, only his lips and tongue moved. The rest of his face was eerily still. Junpei glared at Ace. He took a deep breath and thought about the next question he had to ask. He didn't want to. He knew the answer would be. He knew what the answer would be. He just didn't want to hear it. Junpei swallowed and spoke. Ace, did you kill Clover? Yes. Why? Why did you kill her? She was Snake's sister. It was possible he told her something dangerous. Additionally, she had gone through door 1. It seemed likely she might have found it. Found what? Why don't you go through door 1 yourself? Perhaps it's hidden somewhere. Seven and Lotus interrupted. Yeah, but Lotus and I went through door 1 too. We didn't see anything suspicious. Yes, I thought as much after I heard your report at the central stairs. I doubt the two of you could find it. Yeah? Huh? But perhaps Clover was different. Perhaps she had found it. I was. was, therefore, desperate to find her. And at last I did, in the first-class cabin. I spoke very calmly. Did you see it?
See what?
Don't act as if you don't understand. You were in the captain's quarters, weren't you?
Huh? What are you talking about?
Very well. By the way, what are you doing here, Clover?
What? Nothing.
There's blood on your shoes. It looks fresh. You go take a look at the ninth man's corpse. I see. Your silence suggests that you noticed. You saw something, didn't you? You saw that his bracelet was gone.
Clover ran. She made for the exit, but Ace stood in her way. You aren't going anywhere. He caught her by the collar as she passed and threw her to the floor. Hard. She leapt back up and darted past him into the hallway. Ace followed at a run. He was faster.
That's how I killed Clover.
His face hadn't changed. If he felt guilt or remorse or anything one might feel after taking the life of another human being, it didn't show.
Son of a bitch.
Seven's whole body trembled with rage, and his voice rumbled with hate. Santa's eyes were bloodthirsty, and Lotus and June's face were distorted by anger and hatred. Ace looked at them and smiled. It was a cold, cruel thing with no humor in it. He shook his head and sighed.
I admit it. I've lost. I've lost, completely and utterly. But don't misunderstand, Junpei. I didn't lose to you. I lost to Zero, not you. I'm rather disgusted with myself for falling into such a simple trap. It was a trap, make no mistake. I was trapped and manipulated by Zero. The man I killed in the shower room. If he wasn't Snake, then I have no idea who he was. But he was wearing Snake's clothes, and that was no coincidence. He had also been injected with something that reduced his cognition and prevented him from identifying himself or resisting me. And we can't forget the components that were removed from the red before we arrived. I have no doubt that Zero planned all of this. Zero made sure that I would kill that man. It follows, of course, that Zero knew everything I would do. That I would try to take the number 9 bracelet. That I would try to kill Snake. Everything. Suddenly, Junpei remembered the paper he'd found in the safe. He remembered the last words Zero had written on it. I must punish them for the innocent lives they have sacrificed. This is the only warning they will receive, that innocent souls might be saved. I now state the truth. Zero. And he remembered other words he heard from Clover. I think Zero is one of us. One by one, Junpei looked at the 5 people standing in front of him. Ace, Santa, June, 7, Lotus. Zero is one of us. No, Junpei paused. There was one more person. Snake. It was clear now that the man who died in the shower room was not Snake. That meant that Snake was almost certainly still alive. Perhaps Snake was Zero. Perhaps Snake had made Guy X wear his clothes, so that he would appear to be dead. Where was Snake now? Perhaps he was somewhere laughing at them. If he was Zero, surely he had lied about many other things. Was he watching them? Well, I believe I finished with my confession. Why don't we get moving? He sounded as if he just finished doing nothing more exciting than describing the weather. For Santa, it was the last straw. Is this? You aren't going anywhere. We're going to leave you here to rot. Why? Because I killed Clover? That's ridiculous. Or are you so upset that I killed her? She was nothing to you. A stranger you only met a few hours ago. Am I wrong? Seven roared and lifted a fist that would likely have shattered Ace's jaw. But someone else was faster. It was Lotus. She stepped toward Ace with raised a fist of her own, and drew it straight into his nose. Huh. You've got some fire, don't you? I confess, I rather like a tough woman. He sniffed and wiped a small trickle of blood from his nose with a raised eyebrow. Well, maybe you'd like another one then. Before that, let me give you one of my own. Lotus scarcely had time to blink. He's a big guy. Come on now. He's a big guy who was obviously crazy. Ace snaked his arms around her and pulled Lotus's back up against him. In the same motion, he reached into his coat pocket. Oh my God. Of course he got the gun. Of course he got the gun. Why wouldn't he get the gun? It was a gun. The revolver. Almost lazily, he tilted it to point at Lotus's head. If any of you so much as blink, I won't hesitate to pull this trigger. I've already killed 2. No, 3 people. Don't think I'm not ready to make it 4. 3 people. What do you mean? Very well. Let me take this opportunity to illuminate you. The person who killed the 9th man was me. Although I suppose to be more accurate, I encouraged him to get himself killed. While we were examining the main staircase, he came to me and told me his name. I recognized it at once, so I gave him a little push. Just a little white lie. It seems the settings for the dead were altered. Now it only requires a single person to deactivate the detonator in the bracelet. Investigate what's beyond door 5. Meet again later. Oh, okay. Have a good one, guys. I'm going off ahead now. Well then. Why isn't it stopping? You lied. Oh, open the door. Please. I'm begging you. Help me. Please, get me out of here. Get me out of here. Nah. Oh my god. Oh my god, there's no time left. Listen, I was lied to. He lied to me. He put me in here. It was him. He killed me. It was him. You could have said a number, anything really. Him. So many hymns around here. Yeah! Could have been Santa, it could have been Junpei, it could have been Seven, it could have been Ace. It was Ace. It was the big guy. Which big guy? One with the gray in his hair. I had 4 reasons for killing him. 1. As I said before in the nonary game, the number 9 bracelet is of utmost importance. If I had allowed him to keep such a useful tool, he, or it, would have become a threat to me. As such, I decided that he should be eliminated early on. 2. I wanted the number 9 bracelet. If I could manage to obtain it, I would be able to manipulate the game as I saw fit. I would be unable to acquire the bracelet unless its owner was dead. 3. Even setting aside his number, he would have been nothing but trouble for me. He was aware of my past. He knew what happened here 9 years ago. It was important that I eliminate him before he was able to disseminate this information. Lastly, I wish to conduct a simple test. A test to see if this nonary game was serious, or a poor attempt at a joke. I needed to be quite sure. As such, I encouraged him to act against the rules so that I might observe the outcome. Junpei glared at him. I don't get your third motive. What happened 9 years ago? Didn't I say? An onery game was played. I planned it out and I conducted its execution. Why? Why on earth was it supposed to? What on earth was it supposed to do? I don't really think I have any obligation to tell you that. He smirked. He was trying to provoke them. It was working. Although Ace had paid very little attention to Lotus after catching her, the gun had never wavered from her temple. She looked quite pale. When she spoke, her voice shook. Hey, what's with this gun? Where did he get this? Why didn't you tell her, Santa? Santa ground his teeth and glared at Ace. On the other side of door 6. I found the gun in the coffin in the cargo room, right? He must have grabbed it when we weren't looking. Indeed, I did. That was a pretty serious mistake, you know. Just saying you intended to leave it behind. Ace laughed, a short, derisive snort, and gave Junpei a sickeningly pitying look. Well, there isn't much time left. I'll be off then. Where are you going? Do I really need to explain? I'd assumed it would be obvious. I have the number 9 bracelet. Now I have Lotus. Wasn't there a door with a 9 on it in the room that looked like a church? That's where you're going, isn't it? How do you know that? Santa told me about it while we were looking for Clover. I see. Well, you are correct. That is my destination. Now I will say goodbye to you, all of you. And please, don't forget my warning. Move and I'll pull the trigger. I don't need her alive to open the door, you know. As he spoke, Ace began backing toward the door, practically dragging Lotus behind him. Junpei, Santa, June, and Seven stood frozen. Ace had the face of a man gone mad. They had no doubt he would pull the trigger. Ace had reached the exit, forced Lotus to open it, then turned and addressed them once more. Goodbye. Then he stepped through the doorway. It fell shut. In the blink of an eye, they were gone. As soon as Ace and Lotus were gone, Junpei and the others leapt for the door in pursuit of Ace. But as Junpei laid his hand on the doorknob, there was a noise behind him. He looked over his shoulder.